Recently, our family visited the famous Bathhouse Row of Hot Springs, Arkansas, and let me be the first to tell you it wasn't anything like I thought it would be. Okay, this is Springs water. Touch it.
Oh my gosh.
120 degrees.
Ow!
And you just touched something that's 4,000 years old. This water has been flowing for thousands of years, working its way to the surface from deep within the earth. And in this video, we are stepping into history. No, I'm not getting into the water here. In fact, there aren't any outdoor springs for bathing in this town, which surprised me. All of the springs in these mountains, and there are over 40 of them, are underground today, as are their protected cisterns. These natural hot springs were originally outdoors and flowed through town down what's now known as Bathhouse Row in an open creek. If you want to take the waters today, which is the fancy rich person term for having a spa day in the early 1900s, then you'll have to do it in one of several federally owned bathhouses. The very first bathhouses were simple tents and shacks built right over the top of the creek. The greenery you see rising on either side, up and away behind these buildings, is part of an Arkansas mountain range. In fact, the park headquarters for this forest sits in a building on the corner opposite Bathhouse Row. Let's see if you can say the name of the forest correctly. You read that word on the bottom.
I think it's Awachita. Actually?
Say it again.
Actually? Ochita.
The actual pronunciation is Washita.
That is
Washita. Washita.
not right.
If you grew up in the South, chances are good you already knew how to say it. I'm from Dallas and had friends go to Washita Baptist University, so I had a leg up on my kids who've been living in Chicago. This is also where I recommend parking to visit downtown Hot Springs. There are a few free places on the street on the far side of the building, and there are paid spaces running along this side of the road. Rates are around $2 an hour, which is dirt cheap compared to the open-air lots and covered parking garage that run behind the commercial sector. If you're like me and you drive a mammoth-sized car with a hardtop carrier, you are absolutely not going to find a better deal. We start our visit to Hot Springs with a walk down the historic Bathhouse Row. The bathhouses we see here today weren't built until the early 1900s and received their spring water via a pipes system connected to the bricked-in springs underground. In the 1800s, wooden troughs were built directly onto the Washita Mountains to bring spring water down to the bathhouses here in town. But it became apparent over time infrastructure was needed to protect these natural resources. Hot Springs became the first park managed by the federal government in 1832 under Andrew Jackson. This was 70 years before the National Park Service even existed. The creek was enclosed, and the tufas, or open-air limestone channels of spring water, were covered with brick. On the other side of the street, like literally across the street, there used to be a thriving collection of casinos, brothels, and bookies. It looks a little different today. The original buildings remain intact, but the businesses have changed hands to create an eclectic mix of museums, gift shops, and bars. Since its early days, Hot Springs National Park has expanded to include an additional 26 miles of hiking trails surrounding the city that explore the Washita National Forest. This very imposing cream-colored building you see towering over the main road is not, in fact, part of the national park. This is the old Army-Navy Hospital, originally built in 1887. It was expanded in 1930 and the first operation ever to serve two branches of the military simultaneously. The thought was that the natural hot springs made this an ideal location to help veterans and wounded servicemen returning from combat to recuperate. In fact, Samuel Fordyce, one of the original architects of Bathhouse Row, was himself a Civil War veteran seeking relief for injuries sustained during battle. The hospital was closed permanently by the military in 1960. The reason cited? That it was too expensive to operate. Looking up at it from down here, it is not hard to imagine. This building has played host to other businesses over the years, but is abandoned at this time and considered by some to be haunted by those patients who spent their final moments within its walls. The base of this building serves as an entrance to the Grand Promenade, a paved walking path dating back to 1957 that overlooks Bathhouse Row. I didn't really have any plans to visit the promenade when we arrived, but took a light stroll anyway and ended up loving it. It was very peaceful and beautiful up there. I even made a separate ambiance video of that walk if you are interested. Now it's time to take the waters. Of the 8 original bathhouses built in the early 1900s, only 2 remain operational as spas today. They are Buckstaff Bathhouse and Quapaw Bathhouse. We're headed now to Buckstaff Bathhouse. There are 2 operating bathhouses still going in the national park. These are some of the longest operating bathhouses in the country. We're going to Buckstaff because all of my kids can participate. For Quapaw, you have to be 14 or older, and 2 of my kids don't meet that qualification. So we're gonna take a traditional 1900 style bath. An attendant guides you through the process. We all brought swimsuits, although they are optional, and it is separated. Men go through separately from women, so I'll be split up from the boys, but I don't think it'll be a problem. This should be relaxing. I've been looking forward to this since we got to Hot Springs. Here it is, Buckstaff right behind me. And it includes a loofah, and there are additional spa services here. So we'll check that out and I'll let you know how it goes. I'm excited. I confess I was a bit nervous about this when I read the age limit. I've seen other videos and photos inside Quapaw, and it looks more like open pools that guests can move between, which I thought would appeal to my kids. Buckstaff is the full spa experience, and I wasn't sure how well my kids would like that. Well, I can now say on the other side of this little experiment, I am so glad we went to Buckstaff. It is an experience like no other, and totally worth it. You absolutely cannot recreate this anywhere else. What we did here is uniquely and quintessentially Hot Springs, and I cannot recommend it enough. My daughter and I got to ride this lovely cage elevator up to the women's area. And yes, it is original to the building. I made a joke that the elevator could be featured in a Stephen King novel, and the elevator attendant did not laugh. In fact, she told me every person working here at the spa has seen a spirit at one time or another. They walk the halls, people out of time, day and night. And y'all, she was totally straight-faced. I'm not making this up or adding it for spicy detail. This is the real deal. You'll notice everything here is a white marble. This is original to the building as well and was brought in from Colorado. Men and women are kept separate, and we wore bathing suits for this whole process. The website states they are optional, but everyone we saw was in swimsuits, so we do recommend wearing yours. Here's Isabella modeling the sheet and towel wrap you'll receive from your attendant once you change. And do bring your own flip-flops. On the second floor, we were given a private stall in the women's dressing room. Each stall has a chair and its own locker. Your attendant will make sure you lock everything securely and ask you to wear your key around your neck the entire time. I personally liked this element and felt like my things were completely safe while we were in the spa. The inside of the Buckstaff bathing area consists of 4 stations and an optional 5th for massage. Packages are priced differently depending on what you want. Since I had my kids with me, I stuck to the basic traditional spa experience. You begin with a soak in one of these original soaker tubs, filled with water pumped directly from the underground springs. It is a steamy 140 degrees Fahrenheit, so the attendants run your water a little early to give it a moment to cool down. This large contraption at the front of the tub creates a jet stream of bubbles. Every tub is private and enclosed. Here you can see in the bottom corner of the stall a wooden board. My attendant put this in the tub behind my back and used towels to create a pillow. It was so relaxing. You spend a while in the tub, and it was by far my favorite part. Ask for Maddie when you visit because, according to my other family members, not everyone does this. The second station is a towel wrap. The towels are soaked in the mineral water and hot upon application. Maddie covered me all the way to my face, and I just relaxed in the heat and under the weight of the towels. I lay here and imagined the people who used to visit the springs and what this room might have been like 100 years ago. What kind of social interactions might have taken place? What business might have been discussed? You can definitely feel the history in a place like this and see that over time, very little has changed. Maddie made sure I had plenty of spring water during this whole process. She brought it to me hot and cold, and it was so refreshing. The taste is clean without being flat, and it is so important to stay hydrated during your spa time. My third station was the vapor cabinet, and you are going to be hard-pressed to find something like this anywhere else. The cabinet opens in the front and top on hinged doors to allow you to step inside. The spring water is piped into the cabinet in a fine mist. I would liken it to a very moist, body-sized sauna. If you're wondering about the height, Jeffrey, my 11-year-old, is the youngest and therefore shortest in our family, and he said he fit into this just fine with no issues. You don't stay here long because of how hot it is. The final station is the sitz bath. This is basically like sitting in a bucket of hot water and relieves tension in the muscles all along your back and hips. I cannot stress this enough. You sit in this. Isabella said her attendant didn't really give her any direction at this station, so she climbed into it with both feet and then crouched here like some sort of jungle animal until deciding that could not possibly be right. She got it in the end and finally sat down. Moral of the story, sit, don't crouch. Start to finish, I couldn't believe how much I enjoyed this whole process. It made me wish we were staying in hot springs longer so I could do it all over again. Do not skip Buckstaff Bathhouse on your trip through hot springs. You'll thank me later. Be sure to time your bathhouse visit before 3 p.m., which is when the Buckstaff closes. Now it's time to move on to our second bathhouse. You'll want to stop by Lamar Bathhouse for all your national park souvenirs. They have postcards, shirts, patches, and so much more bathhouse memorabilia. You can even purchase bath salts made exclusively for hot springs. This bathhouse sits at the beginning of Bathhouse Row and was operational until 1985. Here's what the original building looked like from 1888 to 1923. Today, the rest of this structure houses offices for park employees as well as park archives. The Lamar Bathhouse is not the only building to have been converted to alternative uses. In 1989, the Fordyce Bathhouse became the National Park's Visitor Center. Here, each area has been lovingly restored to show the different uses for bathhouses in the early 20th century. They included gyms, meeting rooms, recreational areas, even a bowling alley. This was the brainchild of Samuel Fordyce. He built this bathhouse to be the grandest and most splendid of all the bathhouses along this row, hoping to copy some of the opulence of European bathhouses. Today you can tour this space and learn the geothermal history of the springs. You can learn about the golden age of medicinal bathing and the different therapies that were once offered here. The Lamar and the Fordyce are open until 5, so I recommend visiting these after your spa visit at the Buckstaff. 2 of the original 8 bathhouses are no longer open to the public. They are the Ozark and the Maurice. The Ozark served at one time as an art exhibition, but sits empty today. The Maurice was the only bathhouse to include an immersive therapy pool that's said to still occupy the basement to this day. The Hale bathhouse has been turned over to private management and operates as a hotel. If you stay in the Hale, you'll have the option to have spring water pumped into the tub in your very own bathroom. Prices are on the high side, but this is a boutique experience located on prime real estate. I didn't really consider the Hale for us because I travel with a large family that would need multiple rooms. But if you're traveling alone or with a partner, consider staying at this one-of-a-kind hotel located directly on Bathhouse Row. The final stop on our tour has to be the Superior Bathhouse. which has since been turned into a restaurant and brewery. This was, at the time of its construction, considered to be the economy bathhouse and remained open and operational until 1983. It offered more affordable treatments than the Fordyce or the Buckstaff and appealed to an everyday type of clientele. Even the name, Superior, is thought to reference Lake Superior in an effort to cater to the many Midwesterners who were arriving daily to take the waters. You can still see all of the original bathhouse architecture preserved in the present-day restaurant. There are 18 beers made on site using, you guessed it, mineral spring water available on tap. I tried a flight of 4 that varied between malty ambers to a darker lager, and they were all delicious. Not too hoppy, which is a plus in my book. I'm more of a stout fan personally. This is officially the oldest beer I've ever tasted, since the water is thousands of years old after all. The brewery doesn't just brew its own beer, it also makes its own root beer in-house. Jeffrey was a fan. He said it does in fact taste different from regular root beer. The food here was very well seasoned and delicious. The menu included burgers, nachos, big soft pretzels, even chicken tenders. This was some of our favorite food during the trip, so be sure to include this stop on your tour of Bathhouse Row. There is a law in Arkansas that states that any establishment classified as a bar cannot allow anyone under 21 inside the establishment. Like, at all. They can't even go through the doors. This meant I could not visit one of the old casinos turned bar, the Ohio Club, on the other side of the street during our visit. As a history lover, I was so disappointed. Superior Bathhouse, however, happily is classified as a restaurant. I'm so grateful to the Ohio Club that it didn't work out because I might otherwise have missed out on the Superior. The atmosphere here is laid back and chill, and that's exactly what you want after a full day of touring bathhouses. So take your kids inside and have a 4,000-year-old beer or some 4,000-year-old root beer. All of the water that falls on this part of the Ouachita Mountains is the same water that bubbles up from the hot springs thousands of years later. These mountains, comprised of sandstone, novaculite, and shale, were formed during tectonic activity that drove the surface straight up into the sky like flat plates. Cracks formed all over the surface, allowing rainwater to trickle down towards the Earth's core. This process occurs up to a depth of 8,000 feet and warms the water as it flows downward. Compared to the trip it takes down, the trip back up only occurs over 400 years before re-emerging in the springs around town. You can find open-air fountains like this one all along Bathhouse Row. Feel free to bring a water bottle and fill up. You'll see locals doing it by the truckload. Seriously. The water now contains elements of calcium, magnesium, and potassium that were once thought to add to the water's healing elements. In fact, athletes were so invested in the medicinal properties of these waters that several baseball teams relocated their spring training grounds right here to Arkansas to take advantage of the bathhouses in the 1930s. Arlington Lawn, alongside the Superior, is one of the few places that spring water flows naturally from the mountains into the open air. I was lucky enough to catch it on a stormy afternoon, and you can see the steam naturally rising from its surface. Arlington Lawn is so named for the Arlington Hotel located directly across the street. A hotel by this name has been operational on this site since 1875, though it has undergone many changes over the years. Some of the state's most famous visitors, like Babe Ruth and Franklin D. Roosevelt, have stayed here. But it has also played host to some infamous clientele as well, such as gangsters Al Capone, Frank Costello, and the often overlooked godfather of the mob, Oni Madden. Between 1931 and 1965, Hot Springs was a hotbed of illegal gambling, bookmaking, and high-priced prostitution, all of it overseen by the man known locally as the Gentleman Gangster. If you're interested in the sordid history of this once capital of crime, then watch my next video where I retrace the steps of Oni Madden in depth, from his rise to the head of a New York street gang to his ultimate retirement and death right here in Hot Springs. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you out there.
Hello. I am, I think, vlogging for the first time. I'm in a city of which I don't know the name of. Behind me is Forest headquarters, and back here is a giant old hospital and abandoned. I'm really excited to eat tacos. This caught my eye. Is that? I think it's kind of cool. Little fountain. Camera can. Yeah, a little fountain. Kind of neat. Also, this hill is very big. Very cool. Man, that is a beautiful hill. I feel so nervous doing this in public. Look at this.